getting over an illness. So you're going to have to tolerate the sniffs and every other annoying thing that goes along with a cold. Okay, so let's get to this. Your son started preschool at a Department of Defense school in Fort Campbell. I'm assuming that's in Kentucky. You made it known that you'd likely need an IEP. You got a preschool child diagnosed as ADHD, meet your teacher 2 weeks before school, and then all of a sudden you've got a request to do an evaluation for developmental delay. I'll get into that. But then the next day, the principal decided to suspend him due to behavior and said he didn't have a choice because of an IEP. We'll deal with that, which, that's just ignorance, easy solution. And you want to get the ball rolling, which you already initiated, but there's a process to that. And so what can you do about it? So let's go ahead and get into this and explain the nitty gritty to this process. So you made them aware. They said, hey, we want to do an evaluation for developmental disability. That's fine due to the age, okay? Because it's sort of developmental delay. It sort of envelops a bunch of different areas, and they can have that up until age 9. So developmental delay or disability, that's perfectly fine, but they also need to look at other things. Speech language impairment. They need to look at other health impairment, which would be the umbrella for ADHD. I would go ahead at his age and rule out autism spectrum disorder. So they need to do some diagnoses there, or you need to do that privately just to rule that out. You don't want that sneaking up on you later, especially if it's high functioning autism. And that's typically overlooked at this age. If it's high functioning, it tends to be called something else in this age group. So you already let them know. You already have a diagnosis. So what is it that can be done during this process? It's once you sign consent for them to do evaluation, it's a 60-day process for them to complete that evaluation process. There's nothing you can do about that. Can they expedite it? Yes, they could, but you can't force them to, being that by law they have up to 60 days to do that. Well, what do we do with the children that are caught in between, this no man's land where they have a disability, but yet they are not identified as requiring an IEP? How do we protect them? Well, your child is entitled to those protections during this process as though he has an IEP. And I'm talking about the disciplinary side. But also keep in mind that if your child has an IEP, the school can suspend your child for up to 10 days without giving you rhyme or reason or excuse, period. All right. So even with an IEP, a school has up to 10 times per year that they could out of school suspend your child without necessarily breaking the law, with regards to violating the IEP, violating placement, things of that nature. Should they be doing it, especially at this age group? No, they shouldn't. So what is it that they could be doing in the interim? And stay with me on this. The IDEA, special education law, recognizes the need to protect your child during this evaluation process. And how do they do that? Your child already has a disability. And your child already has a disability that more than likely impacts a major life function, being that they have ADHD. Okay? And if that is impeding your child's ability inside the classroom, then they would be entitled to something called accommodations. That would be 504. And so what can they do during this process? They should have considered, and they should consider, 504 coverage. That is Section 504, which is within the Americans with Disabilities Act. It applies to the public schools to where your child would be entitled to accommodations, but then at the same time, that also includes behavior accommodations. That also includes sort of putting them on notice that your child doesn't exist in some, mythical universe right now. Your child has a recognized disability. They need to recognize that disability. They can recognize that disability under Section 504, provide him a Section 504 plan that would include a behavior intervention plan. That behavior intervention plan would then protect him and insulate him from these types of principal responses. Like I said, they could suspend him for up to 10 days regardless. But I think having a recognized plan and having a 504 team come together, and that can happen in a day. It's not the same process, okay? So getting him considered eligible under 504 to put these accommodations in place, and also to sit there and determine what can we do as a team to create a behavior intervention plan, which could be considered an accommodation, which is appropriate for 504, which is then protects him during this process. Regardless, he doesn't need any additional plan to be recognized as protected during this evaluation process. The smart thing to do, though, is to get him identified under 504 while this evaluation process is ongoing. Now, the big reason that they can't expedite this on, let's say, an OHI, another health impairment, or let's say autism consideration, is because they require adaptive or behavior rating scales filled out by his teachers. They can't fill those out per the requirements until they've known your child for 6 to 8 weeks. It hasn't been 6 to 8. Well, I don't know. I mean, based upon your question, if it hasn't been that amount of time, then that's what they're waiting for. Okay. And that could be why they're wanting to look at developmental disability, because it doesn't necessarily require those same components for your child to be found eligible. Okay. But that's what I would do. You might want to listen to this. I talked really fast again, so you understand how to follow those next steps for a 504 plan, for example.